The Lost World. Francis de Wolfe, Kevin McHugh, Gerald Harper and Carlton Hobbs in a three-part serial adapted from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's novel by Peggy Wells and Barry Campbell. Part 1. The Monster of Elmore Park. London, 1907.
It all began quietly enough in the little parlour of a house at Streatham. For an hour or more that evening, I had been forced to listen to Mr. Hungerton, the father of the girl I loved. He seemed to believe that I came round to the Chestnuts 3 days a week, simply for the pleasure of his company, to hear him talk about bad money driving out good and the true standards of exchange. However, now I was alone with Gladys at last, and the moment of fate had come. There Gladys sat, aloof as a goddess, with a dreamy look in her eyes and her profile outlined against the red curtain. How beautiful she was, and how very remote. But come what might, I must speak.
You're looking very thoughtful, Ned.
Gladys, I mean to say...
I have a feeling you are going to propose, Ned. I do wish you wouldn't. Things are so much nicer as they are.
How did you know I was going to propose?
Don't women always know? Oh, Ned, what a pity to spoil our friendship. Don't you feel how splendid it is that we can talk face to face as we have talked?
Well, I can talk face to face with the station master, but that doesn't satisfy me in the least. I want... Oh, Gladys, I want...
No, Ned, stop. You've spoiled everything. It's all so beautiful and natural until this kind of thing comes in. It's such a pity.
It's nature. It's love.
Well, perhaps if both love, it may be different. I have never felt it.
Why can't you love me, Gladys? What's wrong with me?
I'm in love with somebody else, Ned.
To tell the truth, Gladys, I was afraid of that.
Oh, no, Ned, please don't look like that. It's nobody in particular.
Nobody in particular? But you said...
It's an ideal, Ned. A glorious, magnificent ideal. Oh, this man I'm thinking about, I wish I could describe him to you.
Well, what does he look like? What does he do that I can't do?
Please, Ned.
Teetotaler, vegetarian, theosophist, superman. By George, I'll even have a shot at flying the channel. Just tell me what would please you.
In the first place, Ned, I don't think my ideal would speak quite like that.
Why not?
He would be harder, sterner. He would be a man who could look death in the face and have no fear. He would be a man of great deeds and strange experiences.
Hang it all, Gladys, I'm Edward Malone, a reporter on the Daily Gazette, earning £3 10 shillings a week. Where would I run into any great deeds and strange experiences?
That's just it, Ned. You're so prosaic.
And you don't want me to be prosaic. Is that it?
Well, my ideal would never be that. He wouldn't be content with the work he happened to be doing. He'd go out and look for adventures. He'd make his own chances. Well, think of Burton. Think of Stanley.
We can't all be Burtons or Stanleys, I'm afraid.
You, Ned, with your newspaper work. Now, when you described that coal mine explosion last week, why couldn't you have gone down into the pit and helped those people who were trapped?
I did.
You did? But you never said so.
There was nothing worth bragging about.
Oh, I didn't know, Ned. Well, that was brave of you.
I had to. If you want to write good copy, you must be where things are.
Oh, Ned, there it is again. Such a prosaic motive. I dare say I'm being foolish, but it's so real to me, so much a part of myself. If I do marry, I want to marry a famous man.
And why shouldn't you marry a famous man, Gladys? If I get a chance, Gladys, I will...
Please, Ned. Someday, perhaps. When you've won your place in the world, we shall talk it over again.
By George, we will. I'll make a chance, Gladys. I'll tackle my editor first thing tomorrow morning. Oh, McCardle's not a bad sort. I'm sure he'll help me if he can. Yes, Gladys, I'll make a chance and prove myself worthy of you. You see if I don't.
Come in. Lush, lad. You needn't break the door down. What is it?
May I have a very serious word with you, Mr. McCardle?
Lad, what about?
I want to ask you a favor.
Your salary, Mr. Malone, is
It wasn't about my salary.
No, it wasn't about your salary, Mr. Malone. Then what is it about?
I want to break my neck.
What?
Not exactly that, but I want to justify my life. Do you think, sir, you could possibly send me on a special mission for the paper?
Special mission, Mr. Malone? Well, what sort of special mission had you in mind?
Anything with adventure and danger in it. 2,000 miles in a balloon, over the Himalayas, down in the pyramids. You know what I mean?
I'm not sure, Mr. Malone. I do know what you mean. I mean, these special missions are very expensive.
I know that, sir.
And they want a writer with a name that will justify the expense. But I have got a wee assignment for you that may just be the thing. Now, what do you say to a nice interview?
Interview, sir?
Oh, come, lad, you needn't look so dashed. You haven't heard the name of the man you're yet to interview.
Well, sir?
Professor George Edward Challenger of Elmore Park.
Professor Challenger? The famous zoologist?
Aye.
But, look here, sir. Isn't that the man who broke the head of the chap from the Daily Telegraph?
Yes.
And threw the Morning Post reporter down 2 flights of stairs?
Yes.
And broke his spectacles and danced on his hat?
Aye, he doesn't like reporters, you can.
But why do we want an interview with Professor Challenger?
To show up an impostor, Mr. Malone, to expose a modern Munchausen, insulting the sacred name of science.
But look here, he's no impostor. He's quite a scientific bigwig. Got a string of degrees after his name, an international reputation.
A grand international reputation. On the last occasion, a debate in Vienna, they had to call on the police. Oh, I've got his record here, with his published works, and a fine, stimulating record it is.
All the same, sir. Why do you call him an impostor?
Because of this South American business.
What South American business?
Well, the Skellum claims to have discovered, what is it? A lost world.
A lost world, sir?
A lost world up the Amazon, full of prehistoric monsters and dinosaurs 50 feet high. But it would make a grand exposure story if you could get in to see him.
You think I can't manage to see him, sir?
I dinna ken, Mr. Malone.
You say you've got his published works, sir?
Aye.
What are they?
Some observations upon a series of Calmuck skulls, outlines of vertebrae evolution, the underlying fallacy of Weissmanism. And here is an account of the row at Vienna. It was about Weissmanism, if you ken what that is.
Give me an account of the row at Vienna.
Well, what do you want to do with it, lad?
Give it to me.
You won't understand 2 words of it.
That doesn't matter. All I want is a sentence.
What sentence?
Any sentence.
Well, here it is. See for yourself.
Good Lord.
I told you so. Yourn is jargon. Scientific jargon.
This will do. Mr. McCardle, I think I found the answer. I'm going to write a letter.
Dear Professor Challenger, as a humble student of nature, I have always taken the most profound interest in your speculations as to the difference between Darwinism and Weissmanism. I have recently had occasion to refresh my memory by rereading your masterly address at Vienna. That lucid and admirable statement seems to be the last word on the matter. There is one sentence, however, where you say, I protest strongly against the insufferable and entirely dogmatic assertion that each separate id is a microcosm possessed of an historical architecture.
Elaborated slowly through the series of generations. Have you no desire, Professor, in view of later research, to modify that statement? No. I have certain suggestions which I can only explain in a personal conversation. With your permission, I trust to have the honor of calling on you at 11 o'clock the day after tomorrow, Wednesday morning. I remain, sir, with assurances of profound respect, yours very sincerely, Edward D. Malone. Oh. Austin! Austin! Where the devil is the fellow?
You called, sir?
Yes, I did. Twice. Now listen. At exactly 11 o'clock this morning, a gentleman calling himself Malone will present himself at the front door and ask to see me.
I understand, sir. I shall send him away.
Don't speak until you're spoken to, sir. You do not understand. When this Mr. Malone arrives, you will show him in. I am rather interested to know just who Mr. Malone is and what Mr. Malone is after. Ha! Modify my opinions, indeed.
Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Malone. I have an appointment. Well, a kind of appointment with Professor Challenger.
The professor is expecting you, sir. If you will kindly follow me.
Thank you.
Austin? Austin, did I hear someone at the door?
Yes, madam. Mr. Malone, madam.
I have an appointment with your...
Shh. Yes, I know. Please, keep your voice down. Oh, dear. Mr. Malone, may I ask, have you ever met my husband before?
No.
Then I must apologize to you in advance and tell you that he is a perfectly impossible person. If you are forewarned, you will be more ready to make allowances.
Allowances?
Yes. Now, get out of the room quickly if he seems inclined to be violent. Don't wait to argue with him. I suppose it wasn't about South America you wanted to see him, was it?
Why, yes, it was.
Oh, dear.
Mrs. Challenger! Mrs. George Edward Challenger!
Oh, there he is now. Yes, George, dear?
I am, I trust, a man of singularly docile and reasonable mind.
Oh, yes, dear, of course.
Yet if there is one thing I cannot abide, it is whispering outside doors. It interrupts my work. And to interrupt my work, I might point out, is scarcely fair to posterity.
I'm sorry, George, dear. It was only that
My work, I fear, is destined to interruption. I am expecting this morning a visitor. I know nothing of this visitor, except that he will be ignorant in mind and perhaps revolting in appearance.
Yeah, wait a minute.
He's just arrived, George, dear. He's here now.
Indeed, I fancied as much. Then be good enough to send him in.
Goodbye, Mr. Malone. After all, well...
Yes, Mrs. Challenger?
You do look big enough to take care of yourself. And remember, just get out of the room if he seems inclined to be violent. And if he starts talking about South America, please don't contradict him. In you go now.
I pushed aside the partly open door and walked, somewhat apprehensively, into the room. The professor was sitting in a swivel chair behind a broad table, which was covered with maps and diagrams. As I entered, he spun round to face me. I was prepared for something strange, but not for so overpowering a personality as this. It was his size which took one's breath away. His size and his imposing presence. His head was the largest I have ever seen upon a human being. He had the face and beard which I associated with that of an Assyrian bull. His eyes, which were blue-gray under great black eyebrows, were very clear, very critical, and very masterful. A huge spread of shoulders and a chest like a barrel were the other parts of him which appeared above the table. And I must confess that his appearance made me gasp with surprise.
Well, young man?
Well, sir.
What do you mean, sir, well, sir? What the devil are you staring at?
Well, sir, you are rather impressive.
Impressive, eh?
Yes, sir.
Well, yes. Yes, perhaps impressive is the right word. Majestic, if I may say so, might be an even better one. But we are not here, young man, to discuss the effect of greatness on its underlings.
No, sir.
You were good enough, I believe, to write me a letter and to approve my general views regarding Weissmanism.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That strengthens my position very much. But you had, I think, some comments to make on the proposition I advanced. Come, Mr. Malone, speak up.
I am, of course, a mere student, really just an earnest inquirer.
What comments, Mr. Malone?
It did seem to me you were a little severe on Weissman in this matter. Hasn't the general evidence since that day tended to strengthen his position?
What evidence, Mr. Malone?
I mean, I alluded to the trend of modern thought, to the general scientific point of view. Why are you looking at me like that?
I suppose you are aware, young man, that the cranial index is a constant factor.
Naturally, sir.
Yes. And the question of telegony is still sub judice.
Undoubtedly, sir. I've always said so.
Yes. And the germplasm is different from the parthenogenetic egg.
Why, surely.
But what does that prove?
What indeed? What does it prove?
Shall I tell you?
Please do.
It proves, sir, that you are the rankest impostor in London, a vile-crawling journalist, here under false pretenses. Gibberish. That's what I've been talking to you, sir. Do you think you could match cunning with me? You with your walnut of a brain? Why, you infernal...
Now, wait a minute, Professor. Please wait. Sit down.
To say that I would like to cut your heart out and stuff it like a Christmas turkey would be beneath my dignity. I shall begin, therefore, in a more decorous way. You observe this plaster bust of Socrates, which has always seemed to me of somewhat doubtful aesthetic value?
Now, look here, sir. Just let me explain.
I shall begin by discharging this bust with an erring aim at your head.
George! George, what's happening? Stop this at once!
Keep out of this, Mrs. George Edward Challenger. Keep out of this.
I won't keep out of this! George, what on earth are you going to do?
I propose, Mrs. C., to take this young man by the neck and expel him forcibly from the house.
You put your hands on me, sir, and you'll very well wish you hadn't.
Will I so, young man? Will I so?
Wait for me, Professor. What chance have you got? I'm 15 stone place and 3/4 every Saturday for the London Irish. I'm not a man.
Malone! Look out! I've seen it! Open the front door!
The front door is open, madam. I anticipated some such eventuality.
Will you raise your fist to me? By God, I'll throw you down the front stairs. Take that, you infernal... Oh, my... blast you! No, you infernal bully! Take that!
What's been? They've been killed! They've fallen down the front steps. We must separate them. Come along quickly.
That will not be necessary, madam. I see from the window that both the professor and the young man are on their feet again, and apparently unharmed, except that... Oh, dear me, the young man appears to have acquired a black eye.
We'll go and try to persuade the professor to come in at once before someone sends for the police.
That will not be necessary either, madam, since I perceive that there is a constable already on the scene.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
Now then, what's all this?
This man attacked me.
You will oblige me, Constable, by removing your obnoxious presence from what I must designate as a purely private scene of acrimony.
I don't know what that means, Professor Challenger, but I do see this young gent with a black eye, and it's not the first time this has happened by a long chalk. Well, sir?
Oh, it's all right. We had a bit of a row. This man let fly at me.
Oh, I bet he did, sir. He's been doing nothing else for the past 2 years. You give him in charge?
Well,
Do you give him in charge, sir?
No, I don't.
What's that?
I was as much to blame as he was. I intruded on him. He gave me fair warning.
I see, sir. Well, Professor, don't let's have any more such goings-on.
Right, move along now, move along. An interesting phenomenon. As interesting a phenomenon, indeed, as was ever discovered by GEC in his greatest days. Come back to the house, young man. Come back into the house. I've not finished with you yet. Sit down, Mr. Malone. Take that chair.
Whatever you say, Professor.
May I offer you a cigar?
Thank you.
You're excitable, young man. Very excitable.
I am excitable.
Oh, you'll oblige me, young man, by not jumping up again in that impetuous Irish fashion. Doubtless you've been wondering, with whatever small intelligence you may possess, why I invited you back into the house,
I have been wondering.
Then permit me to tell you. The subspecies of the human race to which you unfortunately belong...
Subspecies of the human race?
Yes, I refer, of course, to the whole tribe of journalists.
All right, don't stick your beard out. I agree.
Oh, you agree to this self-evident truth.
Anybody who got annoyed with you, Professor, would just have to stay annoyed all the time. I agree.
This subspecies, I repeat, has always been beneath my mental notice. But in your reply to that officious policeman a moment ago, I seem to detect signs of a latent good feeling, which raised you somewhat above the level of your revolting plan. I found myself, in short, almost liking you.
Thank you.
You came here, I dare say, for some information about my explorations in South America.
Yes, Professor Challenger, I did.
You will not get that information, young man.
I was afraid of that.
Like Darwin, Galileo, and other great prophets, I have been derided. The word liar applied to George Edward Challenger is offensive to a degree which you, as a journalist, would not appreciate.
All right.
Yet it occurs to me, after several years of patient silence, that the time has come to make some public answer and proposal to my critics.
Answer, sir? What sort of answer?
There will be held this evening a public meeting at the Royal Zoological Institute's hall. Would you care for a seat on the platform among the speakers?
I don't know what you're up to, sir, but I'd appreciate it very much.
It'll be a large meeting, young man, of the utmost dignity and decorum. My presence, of course, will be guarantee of that.
Of course.
The chairman will be the Duke of Durham. The principal speaker will be Professor Summerlee, on the record of the ages. You have perhaps heard of Professor Summerlee?
Good Lord, yes. He's as famous a zoologist as...
As I am, you were about to say.
No, not at all. Nothing like that.
You pardon my candor, young man, if I remark that Professor Summerlee has a face like a goat, and his views on the subject of vertebrate evolution would make a cat laugh.
Well, what are you going to do at the meeting, sir?
I am to move a vote of thanks to Professor Summerlee. In doing so...
Yes, sir?
I shall make it my business to point out, with infinite tact and delicacy, where I disagree with Professor Summerlee. If you care to be at that meeting, young man, I fancy that you might find it rather interesting. Yes, rather interesting.
When I arrived at the hall that night, I found a much greater concourse than I had expected. And as soon as I had taken my seat among the bigwigs on the platform, I realized that a youthful and even boyish spirit was abroad in the gallery and at the back of the hall. The medical students were out in force. I don't know what these meetings were usually like, but it struck me that this was a strange prelude to a scientific lecture.
Ladies and gentlemen, quiet, please. If you get the man within you, let that smile. He's a big and lovely one, and quite a proper style. Thank you, gentlemen. It is my proud duty to introduce to you tonight's speaker, a man of the highest academic and scientific qualifications, who is, I think, well known to you all, Professor William Summerlee.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I have chosen as my subject tonight evolution,
I say.
and have entitled my lecture...
I say, young fellow, my lad.
Record of
Yes?
the Ages.
What is it?
Well, excuse me speaking to you and all that, but, I mean, well, you haven't got a beard.
Beard? Why the devil should I have a beard?
Well, deuce take it, all the rest of these chaps have got 'em. Never saw such a collection of beards in all my born days. You're a bit young, aren't you, to be such a learned sort of bloke?
Good Lord, I don't belong here. I'm a reporter from the Daily Gazette. My name's Malone.
Ah, George, then we're two of a kind. I was feeling a bit nervous myself in all this company. My name's Roxton.
Not Lord John Roxton, the Amazon explorer, a big game hunter.
Well, I've done a bit of shooting in my time. I say, watch out, we're interrupting the old josser.
Thank you, gentlemen. Perhaps I might now be allowed to continue. Science has not succeeded to date in making organic life from inorganic material. The gulf between the dead and the living is something which our chemistry has not been able to break. And in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen,
what are you doing
I
here?
have only these few
Well,
words to
I
say.
heard there was going to be trouble.
We
I
have
wanted to see
travelled
it.
far and
Look at
far
old Challenger
on
over
this
there. He's
journey
positively bristling.
I know, but... Lord John, but...
We have seen the drying of the seas, the emergence of the sandbanks, the tendency of the sea creatures to take refuge on the mud flats, the abundance of food awaiting them, and their consequent enormous growth. Hence, ladies and gentlemen, that frightful brood of monsters which still affright our eyes when seen in the wilderness state, but which, fortunately, were